Cold waters of Lake Kussharo are complemented by the hot springs that dot its coast. But for hundreds of years, the people who lived along the lake have told of large creatures who called the waters home, whose marks and paths can be seen on the surface of the frozen lake, cracked in the wake of something powerful. Welcome to Cryptid Corner, the series All Things Cryptids, and today we are going to be looking into Kussie, the master of the lake. Today's story takes us to Lake Kussharo in Hokkaido, Japan, a volcanic lake known for its hot springs, whooper swan migrations, and due to the volcanic activity, poor water quality, leaving few fish species adapted to the lake, with most of the fish just living near inflowing streams, which provides more habitable pockets of water. Although rainbow trout have been introduced as they can survive in acidic waters. But within this lake, there is something far larger than a trout, and whatever it is, it's been there for quite a while. The Lake Kussharo monster, or rather Kussie, has many depictions over the years, including the generic plesiosaur lake monster depictions that you see everywhere, but on top of that, there are a few that are really unique, and we'll get into that soon. But whatever Kussie is, it's huge, ranging between 30 and 60 feet in length, with a dark brown coloration, a horse-like head, and is extremely fast, often described as moving at motorboat speeds. According to the local Ainu folklore, large snakes have been said to call this lake home, large enough to swallow deer whole, along with giant fish that lived deep within the lake. And according to legend, these snakes weren't all bad, as they would carry one person to their lover across the lake. Very cool little snake guys. Or large snake guys, rather. In the coldest of winter months, lake ridges can be found across the lake's frozen surface, as if created by something large and powerful underneath. During the Meiji Restoration, when the Japanese annexed Hokkaido, Japanese settlers were warned by the Ainu of the master of the lake, and that if you were to see it, you could never tell anyone, because if you did, you would be cursed with tragedy, with many earthquakes being thought to be due to the master's wrath. And in 1938, an earthquake would cause vents to open up at the bottom of the lake, opening up many sulfur deposits and acidifying the water and killing off just about everything within the lake aside from sticklebacks. But despite this mass casualty event for the lake's wildlife, large creatures would continue to live on through sightings. In November of 1972, a diver named Toshio Kohama was diving in the lake near a highway when he would notice a large object which resembled an upside-down boat at the water's surface, moving towards the shore. In July of 1973, a forest worker was using a horse-drawn buggy to move some wood, but out of nowhere, the horse would suddenly stop. Confused by this, the man would look around to see what spooked the horse, and when he looked towards the lake, he noticed what appeared to be a giraffe-like creature sticking its head out of the lake some 50 meters away from the shore. And it wouldn't be until the creature would submerge back into the lake that the horse would begin to move again. The next month, a group of students would be on a field trip to the nearby Makoto Mountain. But as the students looked to the lake, they would notice a gargantuan creature with a long neck and a hump on its back, crossing the lake with great speed. In July of 1974, the Yasuda family would be enjoying a trip on the lake when the mother and daughter of the family would notice a large black figure breaching the surface, with what appeared like two rugby balls spaced 12 feet apart. The figure would move about as if it was investigating its surroundings, looking around before submerging with a loud splash in the lake's center. During the September of that year, the Hokkaido Broadcasting Company would launch a search for Kussie, placing cameras on the lake shore, sending divers into the lake, and scanning the lake with sonar. This search yielded a blurry photograph of a large black object and a detection of an object between 30 to 50 feet moving beneath the lake. On the 18th of September, at about 1:15, The manager of a lakeside restaurant named Yoshinori Katoka would be speaking with a customer on the pier when them, along with 15 other people, would notice two dark brown objects reaching the surface of the lake about 100 meters out. According to him, they had a dark brown coloration and appeared slimy, swaying right and left while swimming at the speed of a motorboat, before retreating into the lake's depths. And sometime in the fall, Kohama would return to the lake with camera in hand, ready to capture Kussie on film. But when he came face to face with the monster, it would retreat with great speeds, with Kohama only capturing the trail of the creature. In July 5th of 1975, yet another forester with their horse would encounter something odd out in the lake, as Katsuhiro Miyahara would be chopping down a tree at about 9:30 in the morning, when out of nowhere his horse would appear greatly startled. Looking towards the lake, Miyahara would notice a dark brown object, which was shaped like the manga character Obaki no Kutaro, with two silver eyes. Just like the previous incident, the creature would vanish into the lake and the horse would begin to calm down. But after that, the horse refused to ever return to the lake again. Something odd with horses in this lake. On August 11th, 1976, an office worker would be enjoying his visit at the lake when he would spot Kussie, allegedly even taking a photograph of it, although I could not find the exact photograph. But the same cannot be said for a sighting that occurred on August 2nd, 1979, when at about 3:40 p.m., Hideki Saza and his family would spot a creature moving across the water with great speed, snapping a picture of the creature, claiming that it was neither a boat or a fish. Around the same time, another picture of Kussie would emerge, showing a large figure with what looks to be a neck sticking out of the water and somewhat of a humped back. In 1988, a local restaurant owner would spot a dark creature who resembled a large dolphin, pursuing it with his motorboat until it retreated into the depths of the lake. In June of 1997, a local firefighter would notice a large creature poking its head out of the lake, describing it as silver in coloration. On July 24th of that year, a large group of people would spot a large creature well over 50 feet in length, sporting large dorsal fins. And on May 27th of 2002, at around 11:20 a.m., bus driver by the lake's south side would spot a large brown object, which they believed to be Kussie, and the report would be covered by the local radio broadcast. Ever since its blow-up in the 70s, Kussie was seen as a symbol of Lake Kussharo, and is often dubbed Japan's Nessie, with a statue of Kussie standing at the lake's edge, where it is said to rule over. So just what the hell is ripping through the waters of Lake Kussharo? Just to get the plesiosaur hypothesis out of the way, Lake Kussharo had not even formed until about 30,000 years ago. So even if a plesiosaur had survived the KT extinction, it would have had to grow legs, walk on over to the lake, and then survive and adapt to the volcanic activity that wiped out the other animals that lived in the lake before 1938. Unlike many other Nessies, the Ainu of Lake Kussharo have told of large lake monsters before the story of the Loch Ness Monster in the Surgeon's photograph took the world by storm, which instantly makes the idea of something living here far more interesting to me. The idea of large fish and snakes living in this lake is rather interesting as well, as it is a glimpse into a past time. A time before much of the life of the lake was eradicated by volcanic activity. Of the two, the large fish seem far more likely, as the lake is already home to some large fish, with rainbow trout, white-spotted char, and the lake's largest fish, the ito. And great aquatic snakes living in the lake doesn't seem too plausible to me, though, as the cold winters of Hokkaido would be brutal for one. The largest snakes that are found in Hokkaido are the Japanese rat snake, which is a harmless snake that can reach up to 7 feet in length, which is pretty big, but nowhere near large enough to swallow a deer whole and carry people on their backs. But when it comes to the more intriguing theories regarding Kussie, the most important detail worth noting are the two stalks that were spotted in some of the sightings. Given the giraffe depictions of Kussie, some think that it is some sort of giraffid, either an undiscovered giraffe species or even a relative that lived on in Japan long ago. Many giraffids, including Paleotragus, which resembled an in-between of a giraffe and an okapi, have been seen as far east as China, and given how connected Hokkaido was to mainland Asia in many instances, it is possible that they could have reached Hokkaido via land bridge. But I'd hope they aren't like their living relatives, because giraffes are horrible swimmers due to their heavy bodies and long necks and limbs, making them extremely awkward in deep water. Additionally, if this was the case, I feel like the Ainu would have had extensive knowledge of these creatures, as they would have yielded a ton of meat for food and would probably have been integral to Ainu customs and their way of life, let alone them just being documented by them. But the most fascinating theory by far, at least to me, is that the stalks are not the ossicones of a giraffe, instead the eye stalks of a giant slug. This theory is instantly fascinating to me, as when I think of something large and fast, I would never have guessed a slug, and also it's just really cool to think about. The largest known slug, however, the California black sea hare, it can reach lengths of about 3 feet and larger, and are extremely slow bottom dwellers, not 50-foot long speedboat chasing kaiju. Additionally, the acidic nature of the lake would be extremely dangerous for a slug, along with slug anatomy just not allowing them to get this. But on top of that, and on the note of other mollusks, mainly in the form of cephalopods, I knew you were going to ask about them, this would also spell doom and gloom for them as well. And on top of that, this is freshwater, so cephalopods would probably also not be able to adapt even if the lake wasn't volcanic. Personally, I feel like a lot of these Kussie reports are either missightings or just straight up hoaxed. When looking at the alleged photographs, I can't help but to think that these aren't distant pictures of a giant creature, but somewhat close shots of whooper swans and cormorants. And I mean, just look at this picture here. This looks like just... You think of a plesiosaur or something, but then, just kind of think of it as a goose. And when it comes to the detail of this creature moving at motorboat speeds, it's likely that these were just sightings of motorboats, whose size is exaggerated due to the waves reaching the lake's surface and seen from afar. Hideki Saza's encounter was thought to have either been a motorboat or even a jet ski, as a boat salesman named Ichiwada would claim that there were many skiers out on the water that day. The ice ridges that form in the winter months are actually just a very common phenomenon in large lakes, where the fluctuation in temperatures, wind speed, and pressure causes large cracks and ridges to form. They're usually called ice pressure ridges, and they form across lake surfaces, appearing like a beast's trail. Additionally, I find it rather ridiculous that something as large as this would go undetected for so long, especially given how common tourism is to the lake. And if creatures this large lived in the lake for so long and had a stable enough breeding population to exist for a while, surely one of them would have washed ashore. Additionally, you'd need a ridiculous amount of food to be this large and move at these breakneck speeds. So it all just seems pretty fishy to me. But also, I feel like the local folklore from the Ainu makes it very easy to kind of further the claim that there is something living here. They're just kind of using these old, tales of the master of the lake and all of this to kind of make their own narrative in a sense. And you see that a lot in cryptid encounters. And so, Kussie of Lake Kussharo appears to be the echoes of a past. Not from the waters of the Cretaceous, but from a Hokkaido that was looked over by the Ainu, when the lake ran ripe with large fish and maybe even some large snakes as well. As cool as a super fast water slug or an out-of-place giraffe that really likes to swim are, especially compared to other generic plesiosaur lake monsters, it really seems like the largest creature in the lake is capable of being caught with a rod and a determined fisherman. But Maybe the reason we haven't caught Kussie is because we're not looking in the right places. What if Kussie is just chilling in the hot springs, laughing at all the people searching in the deep, cold waters of Lake Kussharo? And that is going to do it for Kussie of Lake Kussharo. This creature has a really fun name. I really like Kussie. It's really cool. But I mean, this one was pretty interesting to me because I mean, there's lots of reports, saying it exists, and all of these images and the pre-existing Ainu folklore. And a lot of people really think that if there are any lake monster exists, it's this one. But oddly, I don't know. I don't really feel too convinced, especially after looking at the photographs. They kind of just look like swans. And I mean, these whooper swans kind of come here a lot. But again, it was a very interesting location to learn about. I think I'm going to make like the meme where it's like, place Japan. I'm going to do like water monster Japan. As like a meme. I might even put that in like the community post or something. You'll know by then, but I want to have fun. That just instantly kind of popped in my head. I'm like, oh, a lake monster in Japan? That'd be funny. But the reason I didn't call this one the Nessia Japan is because there is another lake cryptid on mainland Japan. So I might call that one the Nessia Japan. I don't know. But Kussie does seem pretty popular. But I mean, what do you guys think? Do you really think there is something living in this lake? Do you think it was a slug? I found that interesting. Do you think giraffes were hiding in Japan for thousands of years and people just didn't know? Do you think that this is a plesiosaur? Do you think it's a big fish? Do you think this is anything other than a motorboat? Let me know down in the comments below. I always love to see what you guys have to say. And, if you like this content, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you get every single upload the second it goes up. Or I don't know, sometimes YouTube finds the videos, as you guys like to say it. But yeah, make sure you got that bell on so you get those notifications. But if you want these videos early, you could just become a member. You get all the videos early the second that they're uploaded and processed. But if you don't, you'll get them at 2 p.m. on Mondays and Thursdays usually. I got the next couple uploads planned up, and next week is my birthday week, and my birthday does fall on an upload day. So I got a really fun cryptid in mind. One of the best, only the finest for my birthday. But that being said, I'm not going to keep you longer. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.